Babble Talk is not filmed in front of a live studio audience. Starting already, I'm very happy to talk to you and to help you promote these two movies that you are on.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Teagarden Mysteries Till Death Do Us Part, and
Hmm.
you have got another movie coming on Hallmark, Ships in the Night, a Martha Vineyard mystery. Sorry, and
Yes.
it's kind of it's kind of incredible because these movies when they come to France, they are marketed always as very family friendly movies that everybody can watch. And we there are sometimes games that we make that are made around it because we always try to like pick somebody, and that person, if they I'm gonna, for instance, I'm gonna pick somebody, and if that person is the culprit, the guy who killed the person, I win. And sometimes we have a couple of fun games we do around here in France, and I'm so happy to talk to you about these projects because well, you're not in one, you're in two. So uh, uh, basically, you can tell us what is the vibe on set during these kind of movies, these incredible murders, mysteries.
Well, first off, that sounds really fun that you guys play this game to
Mm.
figure out who the murderer is. And do you get Hallmark Channel in France?
No, so basically, all the like Hallmark, Lifetime, and all these channels about like these sometimes real world real event movies, they get sold to French channels, and the French channels they usually air it during the afternoon and during the vacations. So the kids are there, all the entire family is there, and it's always funny. Now it's less like that because less people watch TV, and they try to cater to other audiences also. But I know that when I was younger, these kinds of like Hallmark Lifetime movies, murder mysteries, were so like a part of like these afternoon rituals that we have had in France. And I've talked to a friend because I go to a school where there are people from all over the world, and it's kind of the same thing in Germany also.
Mm.
They try to make little events that make people come back and watch these. So I imagine you guys don't. And that's what surprised me. You guys don't have that in America. It's
No,
more,
we should. We should. That's a great idea. That's a
yeah.
fabulous idea.
I
We
mean,
really,
I don't know because now it's like all Netflix and streaming shows. So I don't know if you can make these, but I know
yeah.
that when I was a kid, it was always something I was looking forward to. And
Oh, that's good to hear.
these
That's
two
really nice.
movies, especially Till Death Do Us Part, for me they are so weird because it's a wedding movie. It's a wedding movie and we're watching it during a pandemic when there are no like weddings.
I know. Well, that was so much fun. I have to tell you, Nathan, because all the weddings now, I don't know what it's like in France, but here I'm in Vancouver, Canada right now,
Mm,
and all the weddings have either been canceled,
mm.
postponed, or just 10 people on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. It was so much fun because there must have been about 80 people in that church.
Ooh.
And yeah, yeah, a lot of people, and everyone had their masks on. But then when it came to filming, we had to take it all the masks off. Um, but and they were very careful. But I have to say, it was really nice to see a whole big wedding. It was great. I loved it. I just loved it.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I can only imagine. And the COVID restrictions, they weren't too brutal. When did you shoot these films?
This one we shot January and February,
Okay.
and I wrecked my knee halfway through.
Ooh.
It was so silly in a workout at home, and I was on crutches, but they were fabulous. They put me on a dolly, and they shot
Oh,
me from the shoulders up, so it looked like I was walking. It was great.
Oh,
And I'm fine now. But
okay, yeah.
yeah, and then the Ships in the Night, the Martha Vineyard mystery, that we shot in the summer, which was just gorgeous. So we were all outside all the time, which was fabulous. But with COVID, you're not socializing as much on set. You keep your mask on. You got to stay 6 feet away from everybody, and people are very cautious.
Mm-hmm.
They you have to some places you get tested once or twice a week, some places, some sets, you just have to fill out a form every morning. But
Oh, yeah.
it's not like sitting in the in the lunch tent together. You're all in your trailers having your separate meals, and it's not as social as one would like. But I have to say, I was really impressed with how well they did, how organized they were. It was a
Mhm.
pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be on a Hallmark set. They take very good care of people.
Oh, that's nice. That's just the feeling we get when we watch these movies. You feel like you guys have so much fun, and there's such a warmth in these movies. And I was wondering, Hallmark has so many fans in America and in their movies have so many fans throughout the world. Do you still at this point of your career get kind of like nervous about meeting expectations either from the directors or the fans when you come into one of these projects?
That's a great question. I have to say they really do make you feel very at home. It's a great work atmosphere,
Mhm.
um, in that it's a very supportive work atmosphere. The crew has usually worked together before; they know each other well. It's always very welcoming, which always takes the curse off, nerves, right?
Mhm.
And they're pretty clear about what they expect from your characters, from your work. So it's yeah, I've had always good experiences on a Hallmark set. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. And I imagine because I've looked at the projects you've done in your career, you come from the theater and that world and that very frightening world that I'm exploring right now. I'm doing a training in acting in Paris, and
Yay, fantastic.
yeah, and I stage fright for me was a huge problem for the first years,
Oh
and
boy.
I can see how an actor who comes from that world must now click into their character instantly now, and I was wondering, you've started acting. I've seen that you started acting when you were 19 years old, and I've also seen that your parents were performers, and
Hmm.
I was like 19 years old. It's young. It's younger than I am. I'm 23. But when you know that your parents were performers, I was like, actually, it's relatively also late because some parents make their children act pretty much out of the crib. And I
Yeah.
was wondering what made it so that you started at only 19 years old. Was it like the fear of being famous because your father was a pretty recognizable face, or was it something else?
Oh boy. I really thought when I was young, I was very idealistic, and I thought that I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to,
Oh.
do Doctors Without Borders. I wanted, but the truth is, my math, my science skills were nil. I was always an arts person. No matter how hard I tried, and I went into first year university. I went into pre med, and
Oh.
it was brutal. It was just brutal. And someone advised me. They said, take a Mickey Mouse course. Take one really easy course. We recommend you take acting. It's so easy. And I took this acting course, and we'd always performed as kids. I had three older brothers, and we were always expected at family parties, whatever, to perform. So it was kind of part of my growing up. We were always singing. We were always doing writing shows, and so it had always been there, but I just felt it was a frivolous way to make a living. And then I took this acting course, and I just fell in love. I just
Oh,
it kind of, it hit everything that fascinated me. Psychology of creating a character, the physicality of, I started in theater, as you say, the trying to figure out spatially where you are in your
yeah.
body, this character. Oh, you're probably working on this now too, right? Is
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's spatial awareness and being aware of where the audience is something that I'm in third year. It's something that I'm still not struggling with, but I have to be more conscious because I feel like when actors want to get into acting, that was definitely my problem. I wanted to do movie acting, so I was speaking very softly, and I wanted to be so intense because Tom Cruise, when he's in the movie, he's very intense and he looks at you. So I was doing that, and my teacher was like, "What are you doing? We're right here, Nathan. We're right here." And it's something that I'm still working on because I still want to do that in some ways, but that energy, that passion, that thing hasn't disappeared, it just transforms. And this is why I love acting, is it's very communicative. You can really communicate to an entire audience what you are feeling deep inside of you. And I'm seeing how much you can do that, and I'm experiencing with that, and it's so amazing. I'm sorry, I'm talking about myself,
Oh
but
no, it's great to talk to you about this. I find that so. I think one of the most exciting things about being on stage is when the audience is so with you and they know
yeah,
so well what's going on in your mind. You don't do anything and they laugh, or
yeah.
or you could hear a pin drop, and it's so exciting. I mean, I do miss theater. I did, as you know, I did a lot of theater before I moved into film. But when I had my son, as you know, theater's 6 days a week. You get one day off
Exactly.
a week. You don't really have a life, right? When everyone else is going out for dinner on a Friday, Saturday night, you're working, right?
Exactly.
You can only see people on a Monday. Who's
Yeah,
free on.
who's available on Monday? That's my problem. Yeah, and so you had your son, and you kind of like stopped doing it, and because you say that, but I know that you played Mrs. Robinson on stage, and
Yes.
I know that this was a big deal for you, and I heard some of the things, some of the reviews were incredibly positive, and I was wondering what was the experience of playing such an iconic character, because you watched the movie when you were younger, right? And
Totally.
you must have been like, wow, me, Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah, it was. I was really surprised, I have to say, because also my son was still in high school. I was still in the mommy zone. I was
Mm,
still like, picking him up and going to meet with his teachers, and here they're. I was asked. I'm very grateful by a wonderful theater company here to play Mrs. Robinson. Um, in one way, it was interesting because the script is based on the book.
yeah.
Book is slightly different. I loved the film. I
Yeah,
loved it. It was a
in the
great.
book I know that Mrs. Robinson is an alcoholic, and that was
Yeah,
your play, right?
yeah, exactly. She's a real like she's a and so I played more of that. I played kind of more. She was a bit of a. I know she was sad in the film, but I just played her a little sadder, a little more needy,
Mm,
and it was an interesting part to play. It was again one of those things though where I'm doing the show, and then my son's teachers are coming. I'm saying, "Oh, we're going to see the show next week," and my son's friends are coming. We're going to see, and I'm going, "No, no, no, don't come see the show. No, no, no," because I'm thinking myself, I won't be able to. If I think you're in the audience, I'm
yeah,
not going to be able to seduce a young man.
yeah,
It's just like it was too weird. Anyway, of course
yeah.
that it didn't interfere, but you know, it's one of those moments where the character you're playing, you can, as you know, you get so involved in the character,
Mm,
especially when you've got the luxury of theater and you're doing it 8 shows a week and you're really getting involved in this character, and then you have to kind of slice it with what is the reality of life, day to day living, like you know And I did. It was an interesting piece to do because I just felt, she was so vulnerable, and uh, so it was. I'm so glad that I got to do it. I'm really grateful I got to do it. Yeah, yeah.
And
Wow.
this makes me ask you the question. During the pandemic last year, I was thinking about maybe what the future of the entertainment industry was going to become. And I was fearing that theater what might go away, and all the kinds of theater, movie theaters and theater, in-person representations. And it's only very recently that I'm like, no, it's not gonna go away, thank God, it's all coming back up now. But did you have that fear of, oh, maybe I'm never gonna be on stage anymore?
Yes, I did. I really did. I really, really did. And I'm so glad to see it come back as well, Nathan, because although, my son, our local drive-in theater, I don't know if you have drive-in theaters
No,
in your,
not in France.
but you know what they're like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
And this one drive-in theater we have left, the only one left, is now like has been like so busy during COVID because at least people can see a movie on the big screen. But I know my concern too is that movies. I know people still prefer to
Yeah,
maybe stay home more than go out too. And um, I hope theater. Maybe we're going to see theater in a kind of a different way.
yeah.
Maybe there'll be different venues. Maybe we don't have to go to a formal theater anymore. Maybe it'll be something more intimate because you're going to have fewer. I don't know. It depends too, like what happens with these variants and
Mhm.
vaccinations. And are you in lockdown in France, or is it pretty open?
No, oh, we just the lockdowns stopped 2 weeks ago, and
Oh,
right now things are opening back up. Not everything, the theaters, the cinemas, as we call them, are open in limited capacity, but the theaters with in-person representation are still closed. The comedy clubs are all closed too. The bars are partially open. It's kind of like an uncertain time, but we do know that the government, our government, the French government, is really trying to make to preserve the culture of the French theater and the French literature, and
yeah,
I know that they're really trying to make it happen, but they also don't want another wave, and they would rather we get people vaccinated and then let things proceed, rather than get a third wave, and then honestly Armageddon in France. It's
oh,
very complicated.
yeah.
Um, we talk about stage, we talk about your career, but something that I really didn't know is the fact that you are a Leo Award nominee, and that you've been a Leo Award nominee before. And I was wondering, I've talked to actors at different point of their lives before I tried to be an actor, and I remember that one actor. I asked him, "Do you does an Oscar mean something to you?" And he said, "Absolutely nothing. This is just a pretentious a festival of douchebags. Nothing." A year later, a year later, a mere year later, I said, "Does the Oscars mean something to you?" And he was, I will always remember that. We were at the bar, and he really like he really he really was honest with me. He said, honestly, right now, everything to me, because it would mean that I'm good, because he was in the phase of his acting career where he didn't feel like his acting was, where he wanted it to be. He wasn't doing exactly what he wanted to do. And so I'm wondering, after all these years of acting, what does an award mean to you right now, to you, to win an award, to be nominated? What does it mean to you?
Boy, that's interesting. I think very much along the lines of what your colleague said. It if it's given by your peers, it means peers that you respect, right? Then at least you feel that. there's some validation of the work you're doing.
Mm,
At my age, quite frankly, Nathan, it means I'm not too old yet.
mm,
it's it gives me hope that it's okay if I still keep acting for a while longer.
mm,
Uh, uh, and and also, you know, you I never want to lose the fire. You know, there's that fire that you're feeling now. I hear it in your voice. I see it in the excitement in your eyes, and you know, I never ever want to lose that. So it's nice to know that what I'm doing is still resonating with other people on some level, that it's still working. That makes me very happy.
mm,
And so it's funny. It is funny. It's not as terrifying. It used to be terrifying to me. I used to think, oh my God, if I lose one of these awards, if I don't
mm,
win, it's I'm gonna die. People will think I'm a total loser. It's that, thank God, is over. That period is of my life is over. It is what it is, right? I'm honored to be nominated. If I don't win, I it was lovely, that thank you, to be, you know, on the list. And if I get to take home a nice prize, that would be lovely too.
mm,
Uh, and but it is funny how uh, the things that how life um, you got to go through what you go through, especially as an actor, right? You just have to. You have to go through the successes. You have to go through the failures, and the best part is it you don't die from it. As
mm,
much as you think it's going to kill you, it doesn't kill you. It only makes you stronger, right? And it only, if you love it as much as I think you love it, it only makes the desire you have for the real purity of acting to just
mm,
keep chasing that, right? You just keep, it's like this thing, it's just this elusive thing that when you're in that zone, nothing feels better,
mm.
but getting into that zone is always, you try all these different ways of getting there, right? All these different means. Um, and it just, you know, I have a friend of mine, a wonderful actress, Frances Hyland. She did one of the original productions of Hamlet with
Oh,
Richard
nice.
in
My
London.
favorite Shakespeare play.
Oh, really? Oh, yes, it's a beautiful play. And she
Mm,
played his Ophelia.
mm,
She used to talk about in northern Canada, the Inuit people. They believe that actors are basically dancers of the dream. That's what we do. We dance the dream. And I think that's the beauty of theater is, you know, it all happens in that magical moments on stage. And then the stage is empty. It's gone. And there's always such a, you know, somehow in film, it's not as final, right? Like a movie can linger. It can be so powerful, but it's not as final as that bittersweet moment when the actors have cleared the stage
mm,
and you sit there in the theater. You just go, oh my God, what just happened? Like
mm.
that was pure alchemy, pure magic. um yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's such a beautiful answer and so true and I definitely think about this and I agree. I agree. It's beautiful. My acting teacher, he prefers stage acting and just theater rather than movie acting because, well, first of all, he told me he doesn't like to wait till the camera sets up. He doesn't like it at all. But he also likes the fact, and you can see when he teaches it to us. He also likes the fact that it's kind of like a one time, like every representation matters for the actor. Like you got to show up prepared, and if you don't quite do it, and that's gonna I'm gonna ask another question about that. If you not quite do it, yes, that is gone, that moment is gone, but you get another shot maybe in the future, or you can use that energy later. Whereas acting, you do so many takes sometimes, even yourself, you don't know what you've done in the end. I was watching a documentary about Steven Soderbergh, and he loves to do 100 takes. He
Wow.
For the actors, it's exhausting. And I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, as an actor, you don't even know what you've done in the end product. And now I kind of understand why my teacher Adam loves the theater so much, and why we were all kind of worried it would go away during this pandemic. And so I come into my question, which is, do you, do you still, at this point of your career, uh when you don't quite, when you've not done what you want to do in the first take, and you have to continue, do you still feel like, ah man, ah, that feeling of failure, do you still feel that?
Yeah.
I
I
was
do.
hoping that you would say no, honestly.
I might not, it might not depress me as much as it used to, or what's the word, kind of freeze me as much as it used to. Um, but I find acting for the camera really so tricky. I still feel like I'm on a very unwieldy tightrope when I'm,
Mm,
um, it's either too much or too little.
mm,
It's you're always trying to. It's such a delicate thing. I think performing. I mean, I think theater acting is difficult too, and without a doubt in other ways. But there's
yeah,
just something about the intimacy of that camera that you're either alive or you're not. It's so weird, right?
yeah,
It's so weird. Um, and whereas somehow, it's funny you should talk about that because a wonderful director friend of mine, Larry Lillo, he used to talk about instant forgiveness on stage. Because he said if you don't forgive yourself right away and the other actor right away, you just can't move on. You can't be present, and you're going to keep kicking yourself for what you did 5 minutes ago. It was just, and I love the just instant forgiveness all the time. Just keep going forward, and you try and hit the places you want to hit. You try and get those moments, as many as you
mm,
can, like beating a necklace, right? Like putting little pearls on a necklace. You just want to get as many on there as all those moments you've been working on, right? Um, but it's what an exciting thing to do, eh, Nathan? Isn't it
yeah.
exciting?
It's very
Fantastic.
exciting. And is it, was it at some point frustrating that you were known for your roles on TV or films rather than your roles on stage at any moment of your career?
Um, well, the theater I did was at Stratford in Ontario and
Mm,
the Shaw Festival mainly.
mm,
I worked elsewhere as well, but so they have their own kind of built-in audiences that
mm,
come every year. The shows are in repertory. It's very much like the RSC in England, um, and so they on a very on a relatively different scale. They always made you feel very very appreciated. So that was
that must
uh,
be nice. Yeah.
yeah, because although it's always interesting to come out of the theater after you do a performance and you hear someone talking about that woman, the woman with the blonde hair, the one, anyway. And it's like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's the truth, right? I mean, it is what it is, right? You hope you affect people. You hope you communicate with them.
Mm,
It's all my father's, was an actor. He used to occasionally he would get mistaken for another actor who looked similar called Jack Palance.
mm,
And when someone would come up to him and say, "Mr. Palance, can I get your autograph?" My father, who was Cameron Mitchell, would
yeah.
sign Jack Palance.
This is amazing. Wow.
He just said, well, I'm not gonna. If they think I'm Jack Palance, I'm signing Jack Palance. I don't care.
Wow. This is amazing. Wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Your father was really a good man. Like some
yeah.
people, I know Matt Damon does this because he's often mistaken for Mark Wahlberg, and
Oh,
I know that a friend of mine told me that in an airport, another person came to Matt Damon, and he said that person said, "Oh, Mark Wahlberg, we love you," and he said, "Oh man, I can't wait," and he just signed and took a picture.
Oh, he's like Mark
Yeah,
Wahlberg.
yeah, yeah, and it's just wow. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, in a way, you must feel. I don't know what it's like to be mistaken for somebody else. I just know that when we come to you actors who've worked in the industry on film, I know that there's one thing to not do is like, I know you from somewhere. I don't know where. Have I seen you in this? And
yeah.
then the actor often lists the entire list of credits they have had on their careers, and and the person's like, no, not that, not that. And it's always the little thing the actor never thinks of. It's just
That's
I
funny.
know not to do that. Uh,
That's very funny. Yeah.
what is the role you get the most recognized for that you've done?
Probably actually Smallville.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I'm always surprised. I'll be somewhere like really unlikely place, and someone will come up and go, Sheriff Adams. You know,
yeah,
so sorry when they killed you off. Actually, it was
yeah.
a
I'm gonna say something about this. I kind of like planned this question because I'm a huge fan of Smallville in a way. I've watched it my entire life. I'm 23 years old. I've watched it since I was 3 years old.
oh my
So
god.
we're coming to the 20th anniversary of Smallville soon. I mean, yeah. I mean, you joined during season two, so for you, 18 years. But yeah, that's where I know you from originally until I look further. But this Smallville, this sheriff, it was quite the character, right? Like you put on an accent, you really went all in it, and it just it's such a you played the new sheriff in town, that archetype so well that for me you were one of my favorite characters. And yes, when you were killed in season 5, I was like, no, no, maybe the bullet didn't touch the heart. No. Oh my god. Oh
Oh, thank you, Nathan. That means a lot to me. Thank you. It was really fun. It was, it's funny because when the episode where I got killed, I guess this is a pattern when they kill characters off, they do it on the first day because they want it. Because I apparently there are some actors, or so the mythology goes, that their character's supposed to get killed off in that episode,
yeah.
but they do all the scenes first ahead of it, and then the actor doesn't show up to be killed off. I've
Oh,
heard
I've
that.
heard that. I've heard that too. Yes.
Or like there's a great story about Joey Pantaleone, that I can't remember what film it was, but he knew there was going to be a sequel movie, so he deliberately kept moving when he was supposed to be dead, so that they could bring his character back, and it worked. They brought his character back for the sequel. He was supposed to die. He just said, "I just kept moving." But
Wow.
the day I was gonna get killed off, the director came up to me, a very sweet man, Peter Ellis, and I don't know. I guess I don't know what the history is of actors getting killed off on shows, but he was very concerned. He came over. He said, it's probably best if we just, stay with the. Are you all right? Are you okay? And I'm going. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. He's talking to me as if I'm about to jump off a cliff or something.
Yeah.
And anyway, it was funny. And then they couldn't get the blood pumping. I was supposed to have all this blood gushing.
Yeah.
The pump didn't work, and it was like cut, 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 cut. What's with the pump? What's with the blood? There's not. And anyway, it was. And the irony too is that my deputy, as you know, killed me off on that
Yeah.
on that episode, and she is in the Ships in the Night with me. She's the detective who
Oh,
arrested me. Oh, whoops, I shouldn't have said that. She's the detective in the show.
I'm
So
gonna
I
leave that out. Just know that.
thank you. So I hadn't seen her since she shot me in that episode. That was funny. I told
Wow, what a
her
reunion.
I forgave her. I said, I forgive you. I forgive you for killing me off.
Yeah. And Smallville back in the day, especially you joined that during season 2, it was already a big teenage show. did you feel compelled? Because we talked about your accent, but was it a choice from the production? Did they ask that of you, or did you feel like, oh, she lives in Texas, maybe she should have an accent? Where did that come from?
Um, you know, honestly, Nathan, I just started doing it. And after I got a note from after like day 3 or 4 from the director, he came over to me and said, Camille, the executive producers, they're not sure about this accent. So you better, and I said, well, yikes. What do we do? He said, well, just soften it because you're not supposed to have an accent in this. But actually, it was too late, and I kind of liked it too.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and for me, it was one of the things that make characters stick out is sometimes the way they walk, the way they talk. With you, it was the entire attitude. It was the entire thing. It was the fact that you gave, and I don't know if you remember this, but you gave Clark Kent so much shit, and you were so reactive because you came in during season 2. There was a sheriff before in this previous season, and by like the second time or third time you see him on the crime scene, you're like, hey, wait a minute, we always see you around when there's problem, and you pointed that out, and I was like, thank you, nobody noticed that. And this is why for me, you were one of my favorite characters. You gave Clark shit and accountability, and that made the entire show more focused and more believable. And and
Oh,
and I was
you.
wondering also, you work with Tom Welling a lot, obviously. How is he in real life?
He's a sweetheart. He
Ah,
really is a sweetheart. He when I worked with him, honestly, he was just always so lovely, so down to earth. There was one day we were filming in the summer, and of course, my son at that time was like 7 years old.
mm,
And of course, he was a huge Superman fan, right? It was the perfect part for me to be playing the Sheriff Adams when my son was that age. It was just perfect. So in the summer, he used to love to come to set with me. And so he'd come to set, and there was one day, I'll never forget it. We were filming at the Kent Farm, which is a beautiful farm they found outside of Vancouver. And it was a gorgeous sunny summer day, and I was filming my scene with Tom. Oh, I'm sorry, I was filming my scene without Tom. It was another scene that he wasn't in with me. But I looked over at one point, and there were these perfect corn rows that had been planted for the filming. And I see just past that, Tom Welling was throwing a football around with my son.
oh, that's so nice. Oh
It
my
was
God.
so like you can imagine what that meant to my boy. That just meant the world to him that he was throwing a football with Superman, right? I mean, it was like it was, and I always was really fond of Tom, but I just really adored him from that moment on. I just thought that was so generous and sweet. If rather a lot of actors would have
Mm,
just gone to their trailer, they wouldn't be playing football with a kid.
mm.
And it made him so happy. Yeah.
Wow. How this is you're telling a story that is very reminiscent of what I've heard from the people, the casting crew, Michael Rosenbaum, Tom Welling. They were very nice people. I'm blanking on the name of the gentleman who plays
Oh,
Luthor's father.
oh,
Uh,
John. You mean John Schneider or
back.
Luther?
John Schneider is plays Clark's father, and
Yes.
Luthor's father is played by I'm blanking on his name, but an amazing actor,
Glover, he's a fabulous actor.
fabulous,
Let me. Oh boy, I'm just gonna look him up. He's a wonderful stage actor.
amazing. I've heard so many stories about how great he is, and he
Yeah.
started in New York, and I know that he's an amazing actor.
Oh, yes, he was absolutely wonderful,
Mm.
and uh, John Glover.
Oh my God, John Glover, amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Incredible
and
cast.
just a joy to work with, and they all were, and they really were. They were all, and another time, John Schneider, when one of the first episodes I was on, again, Charlie was with me. It was summer, and I look over, and John Schneider's showing my son the Fortress of Solitude, taking a tour of the set, and my little boy was just like he was in heaven, and
Mm,
it was great. It was just great.
wow. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't believe it. And you also came back in season 7 and in an episode that was directed by Tom Welling. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah.
And how was Tom as a director?
He was great. I mean, he was, he worked very closely with the director of photography who he'd been working with for so long. And he was great to work with. It was, in fact, the scene we had together, Tom was directing that as well while we were, acting in it together. But of course, he had a stand in when he was directing us, and then he'd come on for the filming. But he was great to work with. Yeah, just a pleasure, real pleasure.
Incredible. And talking about directing, I know that you've directed documentaries. One of them I couldn't find, which was a documentary I think about women in universities and campuses that you've directed.
Yes, how did you hear about that, Nathan?
I
You're a
I
good.
I just looked and I tried to find it. I tried to watch it, but I couldn't. And I was wondering, are there more coming? Where can we find them? If you know, do you plan to do it again? For me, I'm very interested in that because every time people say actors should not direct because they're actors or whatever, but for me, everybody should direct at some point. I have done some documentaries about my personal life and everything, and everybody should try. And I would like to watch it, and I would like to know if you're gonna pursue that, and if that's still a thing that interests you.
Thank you. It's funny because eh, and I don't mean this as an excuse because I loved directing. I love writing and I love directing. I actually was born in a time when women it never entered your head to become a director.
Mhm.
And I still have a bit of that in me. I have to fight it um, because I think it's important to hear, as you say, many voices.
Mhm.
And a lot of times a voice can be heard the loudest through a directing, a piece of directing, a piece of writing that comes from even more than, sometimes acting a piece. Um, Although I don't want to take away from acting in any way, shape, or form ever. But so I actually struggle with that. I struggle with the confidence that actually what I have to say has value as a director. That how I would see things as a director would matter. Um, there's so much stuff out there, especially with the internet. There's so much entertainment out there. I don't really want to contribute to the bad stuff.
Yeah.
So um, but it is. I do want to do more,
Mhm.
and I um it's actually a battle. It's a conflict with me that there's a part of me that goes, no, 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 you've got nothing to say. You should just stay acting. Um, but I'm so happy today that everyone is invited to be everything. When I was growing up, as a female, if you wanted to go into entertainment, really, you could be a Miss America if were pretty enough or whatever, or you could be an actress or a model. And
Oh.
you didn't
Mm.
really, although there had been very brave women who had become directors over the years, they were so few and far between. Um, and I don't mean to bemoan it in any way. It's just that's one of the areas where I still find myself, to some extent, a product of my generation that um, I have to really fight and go, no, 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 this story should be told and it should be told by a woman of my age. Also, the age thing really, kicks in. It's like, oh, well, no one wants to hear an old lady. But at the same time, there are stories that just, like my son is also a filmmaker, and he directed a short film recently called Almost Home, which I think is very special. Um, and uh, it was told by the voice of a 29-year-old young man.
Oh.
And there was such a specificity about it coming from that point of view, as opposed to someone who was 40 or 50 or 60. It had a real sweetness to it that someone my age wouldn't be able to
Mm.
touch, wouldn't be able
Yeah.
to touch it. And that's why I think too that um, different ages bring out different parts of a story, right?
Mhm.
And um, no matter what gender you are, and I think it's like it's important because they're just different facets of the story that will be revealed depending as much on your age as anything else, right?
Yeah. Honestly, from what the way you describe that directing, I hope that you direct something in the future, and
Yeah.
that I get to see it, because I I I I am a fan of watching people work. Honestly, I love that. I love watching people work, especially when it's in something that is related to the arts. And honestly, when I'm hearing you talk, I have that feeling of there's a story there, and maybe you don't want to share that story. Maybe you want to keep it for yourself. Maybe you want to, not right now. Maybe you need to find the right project. But I hope that it's my dream that right now, to after hearing you, to experience it. And honestly, thank you so much for all of this interview. It was an incredible blast for me to meet you, a face that I've seen so many times on TV and for so many years. And the fact that you were so nice and so giving to me, I thank you again. And before leaving, I wanted to ask you, because you were a very accomplished actress, and I would love to hear you about this. Martin Freeman said something that made me think. um, Martin Freeman is the an actor from Sherlock.
I love
And
him.
he's done so many things, and he's also a stage actor. He's done so many beautiful things. He said that method acting is the biggest bag of bullshit he's ever heard of. That it's one of the most pretentious stuff he's ever heard about. And um, when you're young, when you're trying to become an actor, method acting seems like this beautiful, bigger than life thing. And when I went into acting school, people sat down with me and explained to me why it's not for every actor, why it can be very dangerous, why it can be very exhausting physically, mentally, psychologically. And I want to hear your take on that, if you have any.
Well, it's interesting. I actually got to study with Lee Strasberg um, uh, in about 5 6 years before he passed away,
Mm,
and I was very excited because my father was in the original cast of Death of a Salesman. He
mm.
played Happy, and
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
I
that
love that play.
as a young man, and that was considered one of the early method
Mm,
pieces of theater because it had the fourth wall convention. It was Elia Kazan who was associated with the studio and so on. So my father, according to Lee Strasberg, he considered him one of the fellow founders of the Actors Studio, which is the American method.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, and so I studied with him, and he made sense. I have to say, he made sense. But his disciples were they were it was like it was so strange. It was somehow what he had to say I found valuable, but how it got interpreted by some of his students was kind of maniacal.
Mm,
And there were actresses I met who never acted. They just would follow him like groupies from coast to coast taking his classes. And
wow.
so separating that though from the actual technique, of method acting. I I mean, I think as a young actress, I found it very helpful the amount of detail
Mm,
that you can find in Stanislavski's writings, right? The amount of detail he suggests you invest in your character, and I certainly starting out, I found that really helpful because there were things that I just wouldn't have thought of to contemplate
mm,
about about a character. But then after a while, you just have to make it your own. And I think that's the real challenge. I think when you're struggling to always um, be answering to some third party out there about who your character is or what they are, it's somehow hard to really integrate it into your muscle, into your being. And there's a self consciousness about it that I think can be unhelpful as an actor.
mm.
So I don't. I think that's very funny that Martin said that. Um, I I think that's a bit strong, but I found it very helpful as a young actor trying to get into characters, and I think it's still helpful for young actors. And I
Mm.
think once you get past a certain point, um, I know there's still times now where I go, oh, I need to find a book. I need to find a book on acting. I need some questions thrown at me. I can't. I just want to anything. Just what's her favorite color? What
Mm.
something to make me just anything. Because sometimes it's easy to get into a pattern of behavior that or a pattern of acting that is you don't want to duplicate characters. You want to make it new. You want to make
Yeah,
it fresh. You want to make each character as unique as they are. And so I'll take anything. I'll take anything that might prick something in my brain or my memory or whatever. It's great. Um, but as a religion, I think it can stand between you and the character.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that. Thank you so much, Shamia Mitchell.
Oh, Nathan, I have to tell you, you've inspired me. Talking to you today, your enthusiasm and obvious love of acting, I find inspiring. It's been just a pleasure.
I
Absolute pleasure.
thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to people like you and to talk to people who are open about their art. And thank you so much for sharing that moment with me and talking to me about acting. I love it and I love talking about it and I love talking about somebody who's been doing it for so long and seeing that you're still passionate about it so many years after starting it's just inspired me to continue and thank you again for the time you've given me. It's incredible. You were an incredible host, and I always say this at the end of the interviews, but really, these interviews are the best moments of my day. And
Oh,
you were, I can say to you right now, you were the best moment of my day. Thank you so much,
thank
and
you.
thank you,
Thank you.
thank you so much for doing
My
this.
pleasure, and all the best to you. Yeah, I
Thank
know you're going to be whatever you become, an actor, director, all of it.
you.
I see a wonderful future for you, and I wish you only the best. I
Thank
wish
you.
you only the best.
Thank
Yeah,
you a lot.
let's stay in touch, okay?
Okay.
Okay, you take good care, Nathan. Thank
You
you so
too.
much.
Thank you so much.